You're charged with the offense of assault intentionally, knowingly, serious bodily injury to a child. That's a first-degree felony. The range of punishment is anywhere from 5 to 99 years or life in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. Did you understand? Sometimes children don't have good parents. Sometimes the parents are not only just imperfect, they're not good parents. Nobody ever will know what she was going to do with her life. Who knows? Maybe that was the person who was going to find the cure of cancer. We'll never know because she is no longer here. Or maybe she was going to find the cure for something else, or maybe do great things. You just never know with children. You're charged with the offense of assault intentionally, knowingly, serious bodily injury to a child. That's a first-degree felony. The range of punishment is anywhere from 5 to 99 years or life in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. Did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
If you have a plea bargain agreement with the state, the court does not have to follow your plea. If for any reason the court does not follow your plea and gives you more than you bargained for, the fact that you entered a plea will not be used against you, and you will be allowed to withdraw your plea. Did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you understand you have a right to jury trial, a right for you or your attorney to cross-examine and confront any witnesses the state would call in, the right to remain silent?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you understand by entering this plea bargain agreement, you were giving up those rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you intend to give up those rights and enter into a plea in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you understand if the court were to grant your application for deferred adjudication, if for any reason your deferred adjudication were revoked, the court could find you guilty, sentence you up to life in prison and up to a $10,000 fine?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Ms. Mendoza, paragraph B is assault intentionally, knowingly, serious bodily injury to a child by omission. You understand that
Yes,
is
ma'am.
the offense that you're pleading to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So with regards to the plea bargain agreement, your punishments be assessed at a cap of 45 years. The state opposes your application for deferred adjudication, and there's an affirmative finding of family violence. State of Texas versus Katrina Rose Mendoza. We are here for sentencing. Punishments be assessed at a cap of 45 years in the prison.
Do you know an individual named Katrina Rose Mendoza?
Yes,
Do you see her in court today?
yes.
Can you describe an article of clothing she's wearing?
She's wearing red and pink sandals.
Okay. How are you familiar with?
My first encounter with her was in 2018 when I investigated a case of abuse and neglect of her children.
And who you said her children? Who are her who are her two children?
Mercedes and Jordynn Jose.
And who was the subject of that of the two children? Who was the suspected child that was being abused?
Mercedes Jose.
And when you investigated that case, did you meet with the girls?
I did.
Did you meet with Katrina?
I did.
How many times can you estimate that you met with them?
Maybe 7, 8 times.
Did you talk to Katrina about how to be a parent?
Yes.
Was that a brief conversation, or was this something at length that you had talked to her about?
Lengthy conversations several times, different days.
What about classes? Did Katrina have to complete any classes or anything with CPS?
Yes.
And what kind of classes did that include?
She was, during the 2018 case, she was referred for ongoing services with the department, meaning that she needed to go through parenting, drug treatment, drug assessments, and anything else that the department recommended at that time.
Back in 2019, for what you described as neglect and failure to thrive. What would you define that?
Yeah, in 2016, there was an investigation that was deemed that the mother and the father were deemed neglectful for physical neglect of their own children.
And what did you discover was the neglect?
Mercedes was failure to thrive, meaning that she wasn't getting enough feedings and
Enough what? Excuse me.
She wasn't being fed and she wasn't getting enough nutrients on her body. So her body was not thriving.
Okay, was there any, you call that neglectful, failing to thrive, did you discover any physically assaultive type injuries at that time?
I didn't personally investigate that case.
Okay, well, in 21, what were you investigating?
Physical abuse, concerns of physical abuse.
And what,
And
okay, and what was that?
we received different concerns with the way that Katrina would parent her children. And concerns that she was leaving bruises on the children.
You discovered some bruises.
There was a bruise found on Mercedes at the beginning of the case. The children were able to explain how that injury was obtained.
And what was the conclusion?
It was non-specific for abuse.
Okay. And then moving forward, the next investigation?
That was the investigation prior to the child death.
Okay, all right. And what were your concerns at that point in time?
We kept receiving concerns from different people with the same allegations, stating that the mother was being abusive to her children.
In what way?
That they would get spankings, marks on their bodies.
Did you see any marks?
No,
But you were investigating these concerns.
correct.
Okay. And then you've testified previously about the sequence of events and the scheduling that never took place because Ms. Mendoza never showed up. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And when you say that you were doing everything you could to locate the children and Katrina Mendoza, you said you went to addresses and you went to you made telephone calls. Did you go by Mr. Beltran's house?
Yes,
And is that when you discovered that she wasn't there with the children?
correct. We already had been, we've been talking to him, so he had told us that they had left that day on the 25th.
Right. And there was some kind of disagreement between them that precipitated her leaving.
Correct.
Okay.
That you had a conversation with Ms. Mendoza around December 2021 about Mercedes?
Mhm.
And you said that she was saying she was having some sort of issues with Mercedes?
Yeah.
And one of those, I believe you said that Mercedes would cry if somebody was hurting her?
Mhm.
What did you mean by that? What was the conversation to that?
Because she had said that they weren't able to go back to her boyfriend's house because they were continuously calling the cops on her. And they were just calling the cops on her a lot of times, and so her boyfriend didn't want her there. So I asked her why the cops were being called, and she said that Mercedes was crying like if somebody were hurting her.
Oh, as like someone was hurting her.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. You're Homer Beltran. How do you know Katrina Mendoza?
She's my goddaughter.
Did Katrina love Jordynn and Mercedes?
Yes, she did. They never lacked. They always had what they needed.
Did you ever see Katrina abuse physically either one of the girls?
No,
But everything you saw led you to believe that she was a good mother to those girls.
yes,
Mr. Mendoza, you're the father of Katrina Mendoza.
yes, sir.
How was Katrina with around Mercedes and Jordynn as a mother?
To me, she was a loving mother. She took care of kids. She was always with them. She would see them at the zoo or the park and stuff like that. She always had pictures of them, when they're at the park enjoying themselves.
In fact, you showed me your cell phone out in the hallway and
Yes,
you
sir.
just had picture after picture of Katrina with Jordynn and Mercedes. And
Yes, sir.
how did they all three look in those pictures?
Happy.
Is that a fair description of how Katrina was around her two daughters?
Yes, sir.
Were your two granddaughters always happy to be around Katrina?
Yes.
Did you ever know her to physically abuse them?
No, sir.
So there was not only the psychological abuse and the physical abuse. Obviously, Mercedes was being physically abused, but psychologically, Katrina was being abused by the physical abuse that Jose was inflicting on Mercedes. And this has risen to a level, Your Honor, where Dr. Murphy has diagnosed Katrina with 2 serious mental illnesses, 1 major depression and 2 post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And I think both of these mental illnesses, and you can see from the case history, go back way back in time, Your Honor, to a point in time where the reports reflect that Katrina was at one point after her mother and father separated, she was living with her mother, and she was abused not only by her mother physically, but she was also abused sexually by the stepfather. And she reported this to her mother, and her mother just swept it under the rug and didn't seek an investigation, and in fact talked her out of reporting it. We would ask the court not to punish her like Jose Mendoza, but for the court to take into consideration the things that the court has before it in the PSI and Dr. Murphy's report, and find an appropriate sentence in the lower end of the range the court has available to it. Thank you for your time and patience, Your Honor.
Okay, I have 4 questions, counsel. Maybe you can answer them. And it's concerning Dr. Murphy's report. So on page 4, it states that Ms. Mendoza said she's an imperfect parent, but she used timeouts to discipline her children. But the testimony I heard during the trial that she was using more than timeouts. So if you can address that. And then on page 7, she said the girls were not registered in school because the girls would cry and she did not like seeing them hurt. So she would keep them with her because they would cry when they would go to school. And then the other one is on page 8. The first incomplete paragraph, where it says Katrina told her dad that she did not want him to see Mercedes like this because he would call the cops on her. Her dad asked her to tell him where she was so he could go help her. She got scared and did not tell him where she was. And then the other issue is, from what I'm reading in Dr. Murphy's report and the testimony from your client on the witness stand, is that she sent Mercedes to be disciplined by Jose. And the first time she sent her to be disciplined, she came back and she had bruising between the inner thigh. And that was my understanding before they were even living together. So those are the issues that the court needs addressed, if you can. If not, I understand.
My global answer to all 4 of the court's concerns is that, and I've listened to the debriefs, I've had the attorney-client relationship with Katrina, and I also sat through her testimony at trial, and I have the benefit now of reading her clinical evaluation. And I would say this, that you can find inconsistencies, and I think that's what the court is addressing.
No, I'm just trying to understand where your client's mindset was in this, because I'm trying to understand. She stated in one of the pages that she wouldn't let her children go to school because they would cry because they wanted to be with her.
Right.
And she didn't like to see her children in pain, so she kept them with her. But then we have the incident involving Mercedes, where Mercedes is in pain. So I'm trying to understand this statement in Dr. Murphy's report. And if there is no explanation, that's fine.
Right. I don't know that there is an explanation, Your Honor. I think she's just doing her best to try to answer the questions that are posed to her at the time that she gives the answer. As far as being an imperfect parent, and she would have the children do timeouts, I think she feels like that she wasn't a very good parent, in the sense that she had parenting skills. I mean, she was a minor herself.
Oh, no, I'm just focusing on, according to Dr. Murphy's reports, is she saying to Dr. Murphy that she only used timeouts as a form of
Oh, I don't think so. I think this is in a broader context, that typically her parenting skills would be just to have them in timeout.
Okay.
That's my understanding of that part.
All right.
And
Because I don't expect anyone to be a perfect parent.
right, and as far as not having them in school because the girls would cry, I have heard her talk about that in debriefing. And so this is again reflective of the debriefing and also reflective of what she's saying in Dr. Murphy's report. I think she didn't like seeing the girls cry, and so when time came to send them to school, she'd rather keep them with her rather than send them off to school. And that's probably another example of imperfect parenting, where you're loving your kids more than is good for them. That's how I would interpret that.
Right, so I'm trying to translate that to, we're here because Mercedes was injured and she didn't seek medical treatment. I'm assuming, and if I'm correct, people can correct me, I'm assuming that when Mercedes was being treated improperly, for want of a better word, she was crying, she was in pain. I'm trying to see how that translates to, I didn't send them to school because the girls were crying and I don't like to see them hurt, but here we are with a child that's been hurt. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Right, and I can't understand that either, Your Honor. And I think what I offered the court as an explanation for this is that she had these children very young and she was abused herself. And she was imperfect until she met Jose, and then she became a completely different person.
Is that he had a bad feeling when Jose was taking Mercedes. He had a bad feeling. I'll submit to you, it's because he knows that Katrina was not going to protect Mercedes. And he saw that fear in Mercedes' eyes. And he knew that fear from Mercedes and the lack of concern that Katrina had for Mercedes, something bad was going to happen. And he expressed that, and it did. And Mercedes was abused horrifically. And not only that, but there was a day and a half where Mercedes was taken out of it. But we know from the medical examiner's testimony, she was dying and Katrina still did nothing. And if Katrina had taken one of those family members up on their offer for help, if she had gone to the doctor once during this time, Mercedes would probably be alive. And Your Honor, the plea bargain in this case was a cap of 45. And that itself works in the fact that she was open about what had happened. There's mercy worked into that bargain. 45 years wouldn't even cover the life of Mercedes if she was still alive today. Not to mention the pain that this has caused to Jordynn, and probably will for the rest of her life. 45 years is what this case needs, Your Honor, and that's what we're asking for.
Could I say one thing? It's not to comment on theirs. It's one
Sure.
thing I left out. So, and I think it goes to the court's 4 questions. How can we explain what happened? I don't think we can. But what happened is, we know this, that the first opportunity Katrina had to get out of there, she got out of there. Jose always had Jordynn with her, or she was never left alone with both of those until she took that opportunity when Jose decided to move. He decided to move and he left them alone. And that Katrina took that opportunity, called the girlfriend and said, "Get me out of here." But it was too late. Those are the 2 days when Jose was moving.
All right, how did he end up back at, how did he end up at the hospital then? Who called him?
So what happened is, that's when it started looking like she was going to need some serious medical attention. And Katrina called Jose and said, "Get over here, we got to get her to the hospital." And that's how Jose ended up back at that residence. And they took her to the hospital at that point. But Katrina was already in conversations with that woman to help me get out of here. So she took the first chance that she got. She didn't have a cell phone, which is not an excuse.
But are you saying, let me just ask you. My understanding from the testimony is that the children left the apartment. They go to this friend's house. Then from there, the children are taken to the hospital or EMS. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So
And then,
Jose decided to move out of the apartment where all this abuse
I
happened.
know, I mean, so I'm just following this testimony. So she leaves the apartment with the children to be with this friend.
Yes,
She takes the children, well, Mercedes, to the hospital.
yes.
And then she picks up the phone and calls Jose.
No, I don't think so. So
So
what
how did
happened
he
is
know they were at the hospital?
So Jose and Katrina took Mercedes to the hospital from that apartment.
Okay.
And so that was the testimony, I think, and that's in the police reports. When Katrina realized that she's not breathing correctly and her legs are getting cold, get over here, we got to get her to the hospital. And that's reflected in the clinical statement that she gave.
Who was she telling to get over here? We've got to get her to the hospital.
Jose.
All right, so this is back to my question. Where was Jose that she had to tell him, get over here?
Well, so he was in that same apartment complex. He was moving into a different apartment in that apartment complex where that friend of Katrina's apartment was.
So the reason why I ask these questions is because I'm trying to follow your argument is the fact that she got away from Jose with this friend. Maybe it's in the same apartment complex.
Right.
I don't understand then the phone call to Jose to say, get over here, we got to get her to the hospital.
I understand.
So that's why I was asking the
Yes,
question.
ma'am. And I understand that. And there's so many, so many poor choices. And that is one of them because she had managed to get away from him. And you're wondering why she would call him to take us to the hospital, but she did.
Okay.
And that's how he got over there.
All right, this is what the court is going to do. Court is going to find you guilty. And I want to let you know that I read all of the reports. I read the PSI. I listened to your testimony. I always see people as people. I don't see people as criminals. I look at people as people. And then I try to make the best decision with the information I have. That's the reason why I was asking your counsel certain questions, because I want it to be cleared up in my mind so I can make a decision that I deem would be appropriate. So I'm going to find you guilty. There's an affirmative finding of family violence. Give you credit for any time served. There's to be no contact with minors, and I'm going to sentence you to 45 years in the prison. And I understand that sometimes children are brought into horrible situations. Sometimes children don't have good parents. Sometimes the parents are not only just imperfect, they're not good parents. And I read Dr. Murphy's report on you, and I saw that there was CPS involved in your life when you were a child. There was CPS involvement when you were having children as a child. So I want to let you know I understand all that. But at the end of the day, when you think about Mercedes, nobody ever will know what she was going to do with her life. Who knows? Maybe that was the person who was going to find the cure of cancer. We'll never know because she is no longer here. Or maybe she was going to find the cure for something else, or maybe do great things. You just never know with children. And it's a shame that in this case, there are faults, right? You have CPS. Maybe they could have done more. You have family members. Maybe they could have done more. You have police. Maybe they could have done more. You had neighbors. They did their job. They picked up the phone and they called the police. I don't know why it is, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. Sometimes if somebody's walking down the street and they're abusing a dog or not treating a dog properly, you know what people do? Ooh, let me report this. Let me pick up this phone and call somebody. But when it's concerning children, what ends up happening is people say, well, that's really not my business. I don't want to be involved. And what if I'm wrong? And I would always tell people, but yeah, what if you're right? If you're wrong, you apologize. I can tell you right now the number of times there are stray dogs running around. And do you know how quickly somebody will call animal shelter or somebody about that dog? Or either you can be on Facebook and you know what people will do? A dog is lost. Everybody is acting 911, dog lost, put it on high alert. They're on the lost and found sites, every single site for an animal. And I like animals, but the same level of love that we have for animals in Bexar County and in other states is not the same love that we show to children who are in need. So I understand that people didn't show you love and what you needed when you were a child in CPS care. You know, I don't know the answer for that, and I don't know what else we can do about it. I'm just here to hear cases, listen to everybody, and hopefully make good decisions.
Under Texas Penal Code Section 22.04, injury to a child first-degree felony, following a guilty plea to assault causing serious bodily injury to a child by omission, the court entered a formal finding of guilt with an affirmative finding of family violence. The plea agreement capped punishment at 45 years, and the court imposed the maximum sentence within that cap. Under Texas law, Section 22.04 classifies injury to a child resulting in serious bodily injury as a first-degree felony, punishable by 5 to 99 years or life in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. The defendant's liability was based on omission, meaning a legal duty existed to act and the failure to do so directly resulted in harm. The court considered statutory sentencing factors, including the nature of the offense, prior CPS involvement, repeated warnings, and the defendant's failure to intervene despite multiple opportunities. While mitigating evidence was presented, including mental health diagnoses and a history of abuse, the court determined those factors did not outweigh the severity of the conduct and resulting harm. An affirmative family violence finding triggers long-term legal consequences, including restrictions on firearm possession and future sentencing implications. The sentence reflects the court's determination that incarceration is necessary to address the seriousness of the offense and protect the public.